There has been criticism of Bowles and Guinness and this line of research. The criticism is focused on a big omission in their work, and that is namely they don't look at the students involved. That is, they talk about how bosses treat workers and they talk about how teachers treat students, but they don't talk about how students themselves view the whole process. And so many researchers have gone and done that. They've looked at upper middle class students, middle class students, working class students. Um, what they have found is that amongst many students, there's kind of a compliance with school. I mean, some of the privileged students don't love school, but they go along with it because they see it as paying off in the end. They see it as something their parents want them to do, and they've seen through their parents and their family members' lives that by going along with the school system, you're likely to get into a good college, likely to get a good job. And so, say, boredom in school for privileged students doesn't lead to failure in school. It often leads to people complying and going along and doing what they have to because they think it pays off in the end. With working class students, a different dynamic has been observed, and many students state this straight out. Um, just as Bolton has found that working class schools often lower expectations for students. Um, the students know that. The students are often very critical of their institutions and their teachers for dumbing down the curriculum and, in a sense, you know, disrespecting them, not assuming that they can handle a more demanding curriculum, assuming that their future is a very humble one. And just like their more privileged peers, they look around at their family, their community members, and they don't see quite the level of success. I mean, that is, schooling hasn't generally led to the same sort of mobility in working class families as it has led to people in upper middle class families. So one dynamic we see in working class schools is the schools dumb down the curriculum and the students respond resistantly. I mean, they see what's happening and they think the deck's stacked against them. They figure, why should I cooperate in this process whereby the system is judging me to be less than others? And so they don't, as a group, tend to comply quite as well. Now, obviously, I'm talking huge generalizations here, but these are themes we find. Resistance is not only common in working class schools, but it's well informed. I mean, it's based on a fairly reasonable assessment of students' circumstances. Indeed, I mean, I think when researchers have compared working class students' assessments of their society, their understanding of economic realities, they score much more higher than more privileged students who tend to not be quite as aware of how the system works and who's privileged and who isn't. So the general picture we're left there with is that schools are often not serving working class communities well because they often dumb down their curriculum, and students respond to that in many cases with resistance, knowing that it's dumbed down, suspecting that it's not leading anywhere. Now, these are patterns that, with the accountability movement, with No Child Left Behind, with the whole thing where schools are judged based on the test scores of the students, the patterns I'm talking about have actually gotten much worse, because what we have is a phenomena where schools who are struggling to get their test scores up and are facing cuts in their funding if they don't get their test scores up, often develop a curriculum that closely approximates the tests themselves out of the anxiety of the teachers and the principal, that they need to prepare the kids for the test so that the kids will do better on the test so that the school will pass its accountability expectations for the year. And so what we're finding, and this is Pauline Lipman reports this in her study of Chicago, the schools that have become most drill oriented, most focused on memorization, have cut out the interesting materials that could be in school. Most extremely are working class schools, schools where folks are anxious about making the grade. So the whole pattern where schools kind of like dumb down their curriculum and students respond less than enthusiastically seems to have gotten worse as we've started judging schools through standardized testing. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of get out those general patterns. Look for them in schools. When you go to a school, look to see the homes, the economic level of students, of teachers. Look to see the interaction patterns. Look to see how sophisticated the curriculum is. And if you become a teacher in a working class school or a low income school, remember, the most common mistake is to lower expectations. That's what starts the cycle. There are schools who succeed extremely well with low income students, with working class students. They do it by having high academic expectations. They do not dumb down the curriculum. Now they adjust the curriculum. That is, teachers in those schools start from the assumption that the students bring a lot of knowledge to school. And the teachers do what good teachers do. They look for that knowledge. They talk to their students. They try to understand what their students know. And then they try to build on that knowledge, and they try to build curricula that relates to what students know so that they can build off understanding students bring to school. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's very important to remember. It's by observing the backgrounds of students, the knowledges students bring to class, the teachers are most able to relate to students and most able to work with students to produce very strong results.